Kazakhstan is rightly called the state of the Great Steppe. Forests occupy only 5% of its territory. Yet the forests of Eastern Kazakhstan cover the area enough to easily accommodate an average-size European country. Geographers conditionally distinguish Southern, Western and Kalba Altai as separate highland provinces, although Southern and Western Altai form a single mountain system, whereas it stretches for 500 kilometers along the right bank of the Irtysh River. Kalba Altai is located on its left side. Each mountain system possesses unique relief and climate features and its own set of plant and animal species. The low hills of the Kalba Ridge are covered with pine woods. Southern Altai, including Mount Beluka, is where glaciers and the highest summits of Siberia are concentrated. Western Altai is a true taiga land. It is limited by the Uba River in the northeast and the Bukhtarma River in the southeast. The largest local rivers originate on the slopes of the mountain plexus formed by Ivanov, Kolzun, Koksu and Liney ridges. This is exactly where we are going. The town of Rida, a regional subordination administrative center, is located at the foot of the Ivanov Ridge in the Ulba River upper streams. It was named after the mining engineer Philip Rida, who discovered polymetallic ore reserves here in 1786. The mine and the mining village were founded that same year. The town also hosts the administration of the Western Altai Reserve. The outdoor KZ team will join the expedition of the Zoology Institute under the Ministry of Education and Science of Kazakhstan, headed by Sanjar Kantabayev, who has been studying bears ecology for several years. My name is Sanjar Kantabayev, and I'm a junior researcher at the National Institute of Zoology. I'm collecting data for my PhD thesis on brown bear ecology in the Western Tian Shan. The staff of our science unit are getting ready for a counting mission for bears and other animals. We can work together as we have signed the cooperation agreement. This is where you will go to at the White Uba. There is a mountain there called Mount Vili. It's well within view and is the main location for our bear population counts. The animal migration is underway. Inspectors use the photo traps installed on migration paths to do the counts. Previously, we monitored bear populations and upland fowl at special counting sites. Doing it with photo traps is the main and most effective method, though. We are also planning to buy a couple of quadcopters. If one sleeps in a tent, can a bear come at night? Let me tell you a story. It happened along a tourist route, not on the premises of the reserve. On the territory of the forest farm, a group of tourists were filming something. They themselves were the ones to blame as they fed the bear cubs they saw there. The little ones love sweet condensed milk and sweets. So when the tourists would leave their tents, the bears would come to the camp and dig in their backpacks looking for goodies. Preparing for the expedition, we read everything that we could find about bears and even watched the famous Masha and the Bear cartoon. We noticed that the media image of this good-natured vegetarian somehow did not match the statistics of bear-related accidents. After all, it is the most dangerous predator in Eurasia. Large male bears often sin with cannibalism. The champion bear cannibal was found in Alaska. The scientists studying bear behavior did its DNA analysis and identified the DNA of its 4 children and old mother bear in its feces. It turns out maniacs exist even among animals.
Если перенасыщенность будет, значит появляется каннибализм у медведей.
Cannibalism in bears happens only in case of overpopulation.
Заповедника в основном они, конечно,
There were many cases registered even within the limits of our reserve.
появившиеся и обычно
In general, they eat young spring cubs. When the population is supersaturated and females wander around with their cubs, male bears usually attack cubs. Once a colleague of mine and I were inspecting the premises and heard a terrible roar. It turned out there was a fight between bears. When we came to the crime scene, we found a huge head of the bear that was just killed. Imagine how big was the bear that did it. It takes about 1.5 hours to get from the town of Rida to the reserve border by car. Traveling in space, we simultaneously move in time. Herbs are blossoming and bumblebees are buzzing in the foothills, yet the mountains are still covered with snow. On the northern slopes, it will not melt until the fall comes. In Altai, as if by magic, summer easily turns into winter and winter into summer. They are building holiday houses and tourist camps in the foothills of the Ivanov Ridge. Humid and cool microclimate in hot summer months attracts a lot of tourists. The residents of southern regions come here especially willingly to escape from summer heat. Finally, we have arrived at the reserve's checkpoint. Howdy, science! Andrei Kaigorodov, a reserve inspector, is meeting us.
Мы находимся на Белоубинском кордоне.
We are at the Beloubinsky checkpoint and will spend the night at this wonderful cottage. I can make a wish now because I'm standing between two namesakes, Natalia's. Natalia Viktorovna Premina is a senior researcher at the reserve's science department. And Natalia Viktorovna Kaznacheva works in the protection department. She is a game manager. The Beloubinsky checkpoint is located close to the Kuchinsky Peak and is a great place for radial raids, as you can survey both the Black and White Uba watersheds. The Linné Ridge separates the valleys of the Black and White Ubas, both originating at the junction of four ridges: Ivanov, Koksu, Kolzun and Linné. Downstream, the two Ubas merge, forming the main Uba, which then flows into the Irtysh. Belok, or white in English, is the Russian word for Altaian forest-free ridges covered with snow almost all year round. The streams from the Koksu Ridge flow in eastern and western directions. Some of them belong to the Ob Basin, the others fall into the Irtysh. The river valleys are covered with deciduous and shrub thickets. Coniferous taiga forests begin at the altitude of about 1,000 meters above sea level. Fir, larch and cedar with ashberry, blackberry and birch undergrowth goes up to 2,200 meters. The harsh highlands climate makes the woods sparse and trees low and scraggy. Gradually, the forest belt morphs into alpine meadows and mountain tundra. Above 2.5 kilometers, all vegetation except for mosses and lichens disappears. This is the kingdom of rocks and eternal snow. The 2,600 meters high Linnei Bilok is the highest point of Western Altai. The unique Linnei Pillars geo-architectural complex is located at the Black Uba source. Residual granite outcrops of weird shapes remind us of the turbulent volcanic processes that shook our planet 250 million years ago. The popular name for the site is Rocky Fairy Tale. We saw the first representatives of the reserve's fauna through the window of the checkpoint building. As soon as the rain stopped and the sun appeared, two hares came to the road to warm up. Right near the checkpoint, one can start the acquaintance with the plant world of the reserve as well. This flower, Irkutsk anemone, blossoms the first. Adder's tongue comes the second, then anemone cerulean, then another anemone species that we have. Ephemeroids go through their life cycle very quickly, die off and disappear until the next year. Is setting out on the route. It rained all night in the foothills and snowed up on the pass.
На вершине Коксинского перевала вот такой вот каменный тур.
On the top of the Koksu Pass, you can get a nice rocky tour.
Знак, сакральный символ. И вот мы сделали вот такого вот.
They are called obo.
Снежного башка.
They are sacral, and we built this snow idol here to help us to overcome the pass.
И надеемся, что это поможет нам преодолеть перевал.
There have been cases when it would snow up to 50 centimeters merely overnight, but today it snowed just a little. Apparently, the bear crossed the road early in the morning. It would seem that due to its size, it's really easy to encounter and see a bear, but in fact, it's not, especially against a mixed background, in the woods or amidst rocks. Migration is in its full swing. Like us, these animals travel the world seeking greener pastures. A bear cub stays with its mother for about 2.5 years. When the family sentiments fade away, there comes a moment when the mother politely asks her offspring to find another feeding plot. To fatten up for winter, during the fall, an average bear consumes about 600 kilograms of berries, mushrooms, nuts and roots. Thus, no extra mouths to feed are welcomed at private sites. When two bears meet, the smaller one usually runs away and the stronger one may even enjoy it for dinner. Sanjan measures and registers every encountered footprint in his field log, including its GPS coordinates. This footprint is directed northwest. We can try tracking it and maybe finding something interesting. As soon as the sun rises, the snow begins to quickly melt. It will stay on the northern slopes but will disappear from the southern ones already by noon. taiga is impregnating with moisture. Meltwater is filling the streams, they run to rivers, the rivers flow towards seas. Water evaporates and returns to Altai in the form of snow and rain. Cities grow and collapse along the rivers. States and civilizations emerge and disappear. But the water cycle will continue as long as our planet Earth is spinning. Researchers are looking for a convenient place to watch animals. Yet now is not the best time to cross the taiga. Skis will not get you too far, but without them there is not a single chance. Photography as well as animal monitoring requires special time. Early morning and evening. Afternoon is the best time to rest.
Дело в том, что медведь довольно скрытный зверь, все-таки это хищник.
The fact is that bear is quite a secretive beast.
Не всегда получается.
After all, it is a predator, and it's not always possible to observe it for a long time. The encounters are mostly short, and the photo traps come really handy. Watching animals is very exciting and reckless. You never know what you're going to get. It may seem that nobody's around, but if you manage to sit still for just half an hour, you may even turn from an observer into the observed. This tiny and mercury-brisk animal seems to have no fear of humans whatsoever. Comparing the chipmunk and a human by size and speed of movement, it moves tens or even hundreds of times faster than we do. Chipmunks are extremely thrifty and gather a lot of nuts and berries for winter. They say when a bear ravages a chipmunk nest, they cry like babies. A speedy lizard is certainly no bear, but it's also a good trophy for a photo hunter. An ozul will also do as a full-fledged taiga resident. As a rule, bears wake up in early April and stay close to their dens waiting for the first grass. At times they can fall back asleep again for a day or two. When green slopes cover with blossoming ephemeroids, it's time for a true bear feast.
Эфемероиды, эфемеры – это те цветочки, которые…
Ephemeroids or ephemerons are the flowers that very quickly go through their life cycle.
Тоже из их числа.
Irkutsk anemone and lion's leaf, for example.
Да потому что они очень рано просыпаются.
They are so small and fragile but can still survive for a short time during spring. In summer, when the grass grows up to your waist, they would make it. In spring, they have enough time to grow, pollinate, yield fruit and seed out their next generation. Tatiana Premina is a botanist. She studies plants, but in the wild nature everything is interconnected, so to understand the ecology of plants, one needs to know as much as possible about animals. A taiga ephemeroid, adder's tongue, is included in the National Red Book. In Russian and Kazakh, this beautiful flower is called kandik, which in Turkic languages means dog tooth. Its comb is very nutritious and is one of the favorite bear's treats.
Во время войны спасались люди тем, что ели…
During the war, people saved themselves from hunger by digging up and eating various roots.
Мало корма, они откапывают корешки.
In spring, when the food is still scarce, wild animals, including bears, feed on these roots as well.
У них на семенах находится такой…
Ants like the seeds of these plants.
Леонтицы тоже еще один краснокнижник.
Lion's leaf is also in the red list. When the seeds drop to the ground, ants grab them and drag them to their hills to eat their pendicles.
Отросточек и…
this way they also help in disseminating the plant.
Рассеивают эти растения.
The young bear is enjoying its kandik. The comb is quite small, so it needs to get a lot of them to have a good lunch. Suddenly, something went wrong. The bear got suspicious. Did it notice the researchers? No, it's looking up. I think this bear is small and will not attack us. A large old bear appears from behind the rock. It also needs to stock up for a long winter and is probably rather hungry and angry. It's not to be trifled with. It's better to run away. During the few days of the expedition, the snow has almost melted away. At night, the temperature still drops to negative values, but during the day, you feel quite comfortable in just a shirt. The trails over the passes open up and large-scale migration of hoofed animals begins. In the fall, roe deer and morals go behind the ridge to Altai region to spend the winter and come back to native pastures in the spring. They gather under passes and wait for trails to open up. Mighty elks are the first ones to walk the trail. Then come morals and roe deer. The ungulates are followed by predators like bears, wolves, lynxes and wolverines. If animals cannot be observed directly, photo traps help researchers. New technologies have allowed scientists to obtain more accurate data about the animal kingdom. Every year, the reserve's protection unit staff leave about 50 kilograms of salt here for morals, roe deer and elks. Predators also come here. In the course of several years, the animals have gnawed out a big hole here. The photo traps are installed along migration trails and near salt gardens. Before, when we didn't have photo traps, our inspectors had to come here themselves and hide, waiting for the animals. At times, they even had to climb up the trees and hope for animals to come. It was quite risky. It's great that we have photo traps now. We can easily get much more information. Roe deer, elks, bears and bulls. The reserve staff know some of them by their face.
Вот такие вот деревянные лесные идолы делали алтайские шаманы. Дело в том,
These are the wooden forest idols that the Altai shamans used to make. The state border between the Republic of Altai and Kazakhstan operates only for a couple of decades. Earlier, Altaian hunters crossed the Ivanov, Tigirek and Stanovoi ridges and hunted in these places, on the premises of the modern reserve. The cedar with the carved idol is at least a couple of 100 years old.
Когда изготовлен был, вырублен этот, но понятно, что тоже ему достаточно много лет.
The checkpoints with continuous manning are located in the key sites of the reserve. Their task is to prevent the trespassing by whatever unauthorized visitors. Global statistics show that biological diversity decreases inversely proportional to the growth of the Homo sapiens population. During the last 500 years, 844 animal and plant species became fully extinct. In fact, the quantities and habitats of many species shrunk hundreds of times during that time. Yet, the reverse processes are also taking place. Certain species are increasing in numbers and expanding their habitats. Over the past 100 years, barren marl populations, for instance, have grown in Kazakhstan. In the past, beavers were completely exterminated on the black and white ubas, but came back and are quickly resettling nowadays.
Вот удивительное дело, Наташа говорит, что вот это вот озерко, оно возникло.
It's amazing. Natalia is telling me that this lake appeared only a few years back. It's obviously the result of beaver activity. We are witnessing a rather intensive construction mission here. Sometimes they go up to 50 meters into the mountains and drag huge birch and willow logs down to the lake. Beaver building capabilities are striking. Do you see that tree, Maxim, and the distance to water? Just imagine how strong these animals are. That's what's left of a whole tree. They cut it down and dragged for about 70 meters. Isn't it amazing? I don't know. Maybe they cut it into smaller logs. You might be right. It would be extremely hard to pull large logs through the thick shrubs. Look at this huge birch, and the beavers got it down too. Yet the physical strength is not the most interesting fact about beavers. It is the accuracy of their engineering calculations. They flawlessly choose the best site to build their dams. Judging by the size of this dam, they are just starting here. The water level has significantly increased, and this is all by their efforts. Water leaves the lake via 3 channels. Beavers understand that closing only one of them is pointless. Thus, the construction began at each of the points at once. Several beavers are working together and simultaneously carrying out meaningful actions. No doubt it requires not only accurate calculations, but also a clear social organization. It's growing every day. They pull and pack willow branches here. Do you see the traces of beavers' teeth here? The difference in water level is 60 centimeters. With all due respect to the classical school of zoopsychology, looking at the construction done by beavers, you unwittingly begin to believe that the network of dams cannot be the outcome of blind instincts, but of reasonable actions. At last we found a beaver's lodge. It is a very complex and multi-level structure. Its one section serves as a bedroom. There are also a dining room and no doubt all the amenities. Beavers live in stable family groups. They enter a family relationship once in their lives. If one of the partners dies, the other one does not form another pair. Young beavers stay with their parents until 2.5 years old. During the day, beavers usually hide in their lodges and can be quite brave defending their private premises. 2 teal families organize their nests right on the top of the beaver's lodge. The latter are rather tolerant to animals not competing with them for food. If the hydrological mode of the watershed is controlled by beavers, then the local acoustics are managed by toads. You can hear their mating songs a kilometer away. Female toads are twice the size of males, although males are much more temperamental. Sometimes it leads to casualties. The ethics of a wildlife operator oblige us not to interfere in natural processes, but we still decide to help the poor female. It looks like it's not breathing anymore. Oh no, it does. No fatalities this time. Inspector Andrei Kaigorodov promised us to show the ruins of an old believer settlement. No economic activities are allowed within the limits of the reserve, so in 1992, after its establishment, beekeepers and farmers were allotted alternative land plots outside its premises. Along the way, Andrei told us many interesting stories about his life in the forest. He used to work as a programmer in the city, but once decided to settle in the reserve. It was an easy decision neither for him nor his family, but now they regret nothing. Of course, some things had to be sacrificed, but in return, they got the things impossible to find amidst the city fuss. Andrei calls this composition Generation Next. You see, there was a birch and then a fir tree settled under it. In my opinion, it's very symbolical. It means that in order for something new to grow, the previous generations need to fertilize the soil and create the necessary conditions for development. This forest is an excellent illustration of the successive shift of biocenosis, which the scientists call succession. Taiga consists of hardwood and coniferous species. Deciduous species improve the soil, as the falling leaves form the humus and ensure minerals return to soil. That is, they enhance soil fertility. If only coniferous species are present, they suck all the useful substances out of the soil and lead to its degradation. Not even grass grows under spruces or pines. In the first half of the 18th century, the opponents of the Nikonian church reform fled to Siberia afraid of repressions. They were outlawed for a century until Catherine the Great signed the amnesty decree. In Altai, they called them Masons because they used to live in rocky mountains. Having spent the whole century isolated from the state, the Masons formed a separate ethno-cultural community and were later called the Kazaks. In Soviet times, the Kazakh community almost disappeared, but some of its representatives lived until the late 20th century. The famous apiary of grandfather Tarsky should be somewhere close. We just passed by the so-called Svetly Spring. Before the establishment of the reserve, there were two settlements in the area. An old couple lived here. Their name was Tarsky. The remains of the apiary are still there behind the old hut. So many bare footprints around. These hives have been empty for quite some time, but the bear decided to check them anyway. What if the honey showed up? Apparently it got upset and scattered them around in irritation. The Kazaks were running away from civilization. If it came closer, they went further into the wild. The true Kazaks are no longer to meet, though their descendants remained. Taiga is gradually overtaking what belongs to it. The wild nature step by step is absorbing the old settlements and brings it into pristine condition like the humans were never around. We are leaving the Western Altai Reserve, but our journey is not finished. We have learned a lot about nature conservation and reserves and now cannot wait to get acquainted with the local fauna. To do so, we will have to go to one of the most inaccessible corners of Western Altai, Black Uba Hunting Farm. Our adventures along the way will be the theme of the next episode.